Now before I get started, don't worry, this is not going to be an e-begging video, but I thought this was worth talking about because of the varying reactions from some patrons and creators. So Patreon sent this letter out to creators on December 7th announcing that creators will now take home exactly 95% of all pledges. And of course my reaction was great, because up until now we've generally taken home less than 90%. So I didn't bother reading the rest of the email, I was just happy to be getting more of what my patrons pledged. However, the next day I woke up, my pledges had fallen from $652 to $592, a drop of 9%. Since then I've got a few more pledges and that brought me back up to $612. Now when a patron leaves Patreon, they're asked to fill out an exit survey and provide an answer as to why they left. You can choose a pre-filled option, the most common one being my financial situation has changed. As you can see, 8 people have left over the past 2 days, which is unusually high for my channel. 4 of those people chose I'm not happy with Patreon's features or services, and 2 left comments. Not willing to pay 37 cents in fees for a $1 pledge, which is fair enough, I think. I hope you're reading this, Jack Conti and Sam Yam. I support multiple creators on Patreon. The new system you've introduced is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to try and support my creators by other means. Get your shit together, you greedy bastards, and cancel these new measures, or else bye-bye from me from this platform, permanently, and I'll be back when and if you change your mind. So thanks for that, Jack. Really appreciate it. Now I went back and read the email, and it turns out that Patreon is able to guarantee creators taking home more money because they're charging patrons more. A new service fee of 2.9% plus 35 cents will be paid by patrons for each individual pledge starting on December 18th. This streamlines fees for both creators and patrons to ensure that you pay no more than 5%. And they give this little chart here showing that creators used to take home anywhere between 80 and 88% of their pledges, but now you'll take home 95%. And by way of illustration, at the end of November I had $754 pledged by patrons and received a payout of $660, a difference of 12.6%, or in other words, I took home 87.4% of what was pledged. If I got 95%, the payout would have been closer to $717.24. So essentially, patrons are stumping up for the processing fee because Patreon is still taking the same 5% cut they always have. And I don't have a problem with that. Patreon is a business and they have to make money somehow. But I'm not sure slugging patrons with extra charges is the best way to go about making sure creators get to keep more. Patreon says they're going to start doing this on December 18th and that patrons have already been notified of the changes. And they claim that they ran experiments to understand patrons' potential reactions, and we found that many patrons were happy knowing that this change will send more money to creators. Well, that might be true, but there are also many patrons that aren't happy about it. So presumably some of you out there don't have a problem with this new system, but clearly some people do, and I think for good reason. Now, some of you have probably already figured out how not to pay more simply by reducing your pledge. So for example, let's say you currently pledge $5. Under the new system, you'll pay $5 plus 2.9% plus 35 cents, which equals $5.50. Now, if you don't want to pay any more than $5, change your pledge to $4.52, add on the fees, and you'll pay $5. But here's the problem, or at least one of the problems. Under the old system, you pledge $5, and using my November payout rate of 87.4%, I would receive $4.37. But under this system, I would receive 95% of your $4.52 pledge, which equals $4.29. So I actually get less. So it really depends on your old payout ratio. If my payout ratio under the old system would have dropped to 85.8%, then the new system would be just as good. And anything below that, the new system would be better, if you elect to change your pledge to incorporate the new fees. But there are other problems as well. If you pledge $5 or even $2, you can adjust your pledge down. But if you pledge just $1, you can't, because there's a $1 minimum. So you can understand this patron's message. His $1 pledge just went up by, he says 37 cents, I say 38 cents, or 38%. So you can't blame him for not wanting to stump up an extra 38%. And because there is a percentage and a flat fee, this obviously scales. Someone that pledges $10 will see an increase of 64 cents or 6.4%. A $20 a month patron will pay an extra 93 cents or 4.7%. Now, I don't want to over-exaggerate the effect. Obviously, those that pledge $1 are going to pay the least in charges, but in percentage terms, it affects small pledges the most, which is what most pledges are. Approximately half the pledges I receive are $1 pledges. Now, it's not clear to me how it will affect this guy. He spends more than $1 on Patreon, but he spreads it around by giving several content creators $1 each. Now, will he be forced to pay 2.9% plus 35 cents on each dollar, or on the total? You'd think it'd be on the total, but it's not clear. Also, here's another problem. Let's say you pledge $5 to a creator because of a reward on offer, but you don't want to pay the extra fees. If you reduce your pledge, you now won't get that $5 reward, even though you're still paying $5. Now, maybe this won't matter. Perhaps the vast majority of patrons are happy to pay the extra fees, but it's something that creators might want to think about when setting reward levels. Now, Patreon has said that one of the reasons they're doing this is to make your paycheck more predictable. And of course, that's true. You know you'll receive exactly 95% of your pledges. But what other reasons could there be for this move? Could it be competition? Patreon said that currently creators keep between 80 to 88% of pledges. Patreon says they take a 5% fee, and then processing fees are typically under 5%, so more than a 90% payout. A new site called Maker says you keep on average 91%. Transaction fees average 3.3%, and they take 4.8%. So is Patreon feeling the heat from the competition? Who knows? But the only reason they can offer a 95% payout now is because they are slugging patrons with the cost. So on balance, it's unclear to me whether this is a good move by Patreon. I know I'm definitely not the only one to see patrons leave because of the change. And if you've decided to leave, I totally understand your decision, and I don't want to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. If you would like an alternative to Patreon, I've set up an account at Maker, and of course you can also donate directly via PayPal and on Minds, although I don't know what percentage Minds takes. All links are in the description. And as soon as I press publish on this video, I'm going to set up a poll on Patreon to ask patrons what they think of Patreon's new policy. Patreon claims that many patrons were happy about the changes, but I want to find out for myself what you guys think. So until then, I'll see you next time.